saying, yesterday was history.
Howdy Crystal Conclave, it's NESHY, and today we're going to rank every single possible piece of a Crystal Beast Endboard. First of all, we'll talk about the very best Crystal Beast Endboard, been with us since day one, not necessarily day one, but link format. Baguska, the terribly tired Crystal Beast. Definitely an S tier, right? I think we all agree. Being able to plan B, Floodgate, Pegasus of one card, Baguska, no competition here. Baguska needs his own tier. We'll throw him here for now. We'll talk about having his own tier. Appaloosa, I want to say either A or S. It's definitely one of these. I'm going to throw it in A just because it is pretty easy to exploit, but when it hits, right? I think Appaloosa is a very solid A tier. Next, just any hand trap. I think hand traps are honestly pretty B tier. It's a 1-for-1. It doesn't really push for any win condition at all. I think hand traps like Ash Blossom, Imperm, obviously Floodgate hand traps are going to go more in the S or A tier. Something like Lancia or Droll, but just a basic hand trap. All right, we're going to really dive deep into whatever is called a Crystal Beast Interruption. Amber Mammoth giving you protection, targeting protection. I mean, that's sweet. I'd say it's a D tier card, honestly. And I'm going to throw Keeper down here too. Same with Emerald Tortoise. Amber Mammoth is going to be the best out of these. Emerald Tortoise probably the worst. But being able to protect your things, it just takes too much setup to basically have a 2-card combo to protect your cards. I think it's just nice that it has this effect. It didn't need the effect, but in terms of being part of your end board, could be better, definitely. Borreload Savage Dragon, I think is a good A tier card. I would say low A, maybe like an A-, but he gets big, so he does count towards the win condition. Savage is not S tier. Just because his name starts with an S doesn't mean he's Savage. How do you make Savage? With Rev Synchron. So Rev Synchron, you make Power Tool Dragon, and then it summons back, and you can create any 8 Borreload Savage, baby. But you do have to have a link in your graveyard in order to do it. So usually it's going to be Cherubini that you're going to be equipping to the Borreload Savage. Next up, Crystal Master. I want to give Crystal Master a C tier because being able to protect not only as part of your end board, but like during your combo, protecting Ruby from Imperm or Effect Veiler is just incredible. It's very invaluable in a Golden Rule format. If we're ranking this card in terms of how it is as a utility card, it's tough to say. Like the searching definitely boosts it to maybe an A tier, but we're talking about purely in terms of the end board and what it provides. So I shouldn't even be counting this as part of your combo. Just as purely part of the end board, I think solid C tier. Protection is great, being able to protect against Imperm during your turn, being able to protect against Change of Heart. I guess Triple Tack doesn't target. Like, I guess what does target? Droplet doesn't, Dark Ruler doesn't, Kaijus don't, Sphere Mode, Lava Golem. So maybe the targeting protection isn't as important. Maybe this is a C tier card. Or I mean a D tier card. I'm down to put this in D tier. Yeah, true. Dimension Shifter in the graveyard. That's a pretty good end board. You definitely play Shifter if you're not playing Salvation. Crystal Raigeki. I'm fine with putting this in C tier. I think it's a pretty solid card, all things considered. Obviously, you'd rather have Miracle, but Crystal Raigeki is pretty great. I would put it in like B tier, but since Miracle exists, it knocks it down a peg. Yeah, it's a broken speed duel card as well, and Duel Links. Crystal Wing, easy A tier. I honestly kind of want to put it in front of Savage because it does negate and destroy, and he gets beefy just like Savage, and he sticks around. Guaranteed negate every turn, right? Whereas Savage only negates per counter. I think Appaloosa still can contend the Savage. I'm open to discussion on this though. Herald of the Arclight, A tier for sure, because it's a Floodgate. It's a Floodgate, Omni Negate, maybe even S tier, but it is pretty wimpy. It's not really helping as a win condition. 5-headed Link Dragon, baby. Against some decks, this is just an S tier card, right? What the heck is Altergeist gonna do to beat this? What is Sky Striker gonna do? What is Labyrinth gonna do to beat this? Into the right Endboards, this could be a great A tier, or this could be a great S tier. Geist beats over it. Sky 3, welcome to the Conclave. What does Geist use to beat over it? Is it Memory Gant? Memory Gant plus Hextia? That's true. Against Labyrinth, what's Labyrinth gonna do against this? This is pretty matchup specific though, so I don't know what we want to say with cards like Five-Headed Link Dragon, Secret Village, Naturia Beast. Like, these are all matchup specific. Same with Zombie World. But these are just insane blowouts in the matchups where they're specific. Because it's specific, A tier is fair. Alright, I think it's time for a new tier. Alright, so we made a new tier. This is S. This is S+. So these are S tier cards, but it depends on the matchup. Simba Sushi, welcome to the Conclave. These are all just amazing floodgates, but they're not as versatile as these floodgates. Obviously, the floodgates are going to be S tier while the regular negates are A tier. That's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Goes. Whoever establishes their floodgate best wins. It's kind of how it is, or has the board-breaking blowout. But this is how I want to rank these ones. I think Necro Valley can go over Gamma Seal. I think Griffin goes over Zombie World. I think Dweller, because of how easy Dweller is to make, I think it's the best in this category. Isn't Necro Valley about as good as Dweller? Not necessarily, because there are a lot of decks that want to move cards out of the graveyard that don't necessarily activate effects in the graveyard. Runic is an example of this. Runic doesn't have any cards that activate in the graveyard, except for like Gary's destruction effect, but we don't talk about that. But Necro Valley actually stops them from putting the Runic cards back in the deck and drawing. Yeah, Branded also has more cards that interact with the graveyard that don't necessarily activate in the graveyard. Rika moves cards out of the graveyard. Duel Academy is either B tier or like C tier. It's really just a worse Labyrinth. I'm fine with putting it in C tier, honestly, because you're only going to realistically use Duel Academy once, maybe twice in a duel. The attack gain boost and the damage infliction does come up, and it is kind of nice. And this is kind of funny when you combo with Appaloosa. But you know, for thematic reasons, I'll put it in B tier. We'll do it. Now it's time for Overdrive. Where is Overdrive going? On the one hand, it is an entire win condition. On the other hand, it shuffles your entire Endboard into the deck. But it does solo matchups like Labyrinth. So this is an interesting one. I think for the sake of the Conclave, we're gonna put Overdrive in S tier. Just under Baguska. Overdrive has to go into S+ tier. Next up, Rainbow Bridge of the Heart. We're going to put Rainbow Bridge of the Heart in B tier. It's a very solid disruption, but it doesn't actually do anything on its own. It has to be comboed with something like Awakening or having your Crystal Beast getting destroyed in order to enable it. So if you don't know, you can Awakening on your opponent's turn, special summon a Sapphire Pegasus, uses effect to crystallize, and then that can trigger Heart to bounce something. The only issue is Awakening has to be Chainlink 1 in this case, otherwise Pegasus will miss timing and cause Heart to not activate. So I think for this, Heart is awesome as removal, and that's why it's not in C tier, but because it's so dependent on other cards and for things to work out pretty well in order to enable it, it fits in a nice lovely B tier. Definitely above Duel Academy. I don't want to put it above a Hand Trap, but with Hand Traps, you have more control over what's going on, whereas Heart is a little bit more reactive. Zealantis. I want to put this guy in A tier so bad, and I'm honestly kind of down to putting it under an Appaloosa, not only protecting it from battle by popping 2 cards during the battle phase, well, because it's co-linked, but just the idea that you get to pop 2 cards because it's for each co-linked monster. I think it's just awesome. Now, it is pretty dependent, so I could see it just going in B tier, but I want to put it in high B tier. Clearing 2 cards like that, it's kind of awesome. If Zealantis is on your Endboard, that means you've probably done something wrong. No, I always have Zealantis right under Appaloosa. If you haven't activated the serotonin effect of popping your opponent's cards during their battle phase with Zealantis, I implore you to try it out for yourself. Finally, SP Little Knight, a new card. I think that's what this is called. But SP, this has gotta be an S plus tier card because of how versatile it is and how easy it is to make. Might put it, no. It can't be better than the Floodgates, obviously, because the Floodgates kind of win games on their own. But this is definitely an amazing card and I can't wait to play with it. Evil Swarm Nightmare, if you're playing Advanced Crystal Beast. This guy's a B tier. He is great. It is awesome the way he works. I'll put it above Ash Blossom. It is a little format dependent. In Kashtira format, this format specifically, Evil Swarm Nightmare pops off. Your opponent special summons any Kashtira and then you immediately activate his effect to book it face down. And being able to do that twice in one turn is awesome. But your opponent has to special summon a monster and then he books, which is awesome, but it's a little more reactive than I would like. I'll put him over Zealantis though. I'll do that much because it is pretty awesome, but you do have to be playing the Advanced Crystal Beast. Oh, that's another thing. Zealantis, all right. The jury is out. We'll put Zealantis over Evil Swarm Nightmare. Next up, Hope Harbinger. I want to put it in B tier because of how it's not super versatile, but it can also protect Appaloosa, which is nice. It's also not the easiest thing in the world to make, requiring 2 Zeniths. I think now that I think of it, it's got to be B tier. It is great, but it can't negate the things that you want to negate with it, like Dark Ruler and Droplet. And getting 2 Zeniths on the board is a lot to ask for. Next up, Kashtira Fenrir. Oh boy, is this guy amazing. But unfortunately, it is just a B tier interruption. Like in terms of an interruption, I would say it's probably on par with a hand trap. Maybe even less, honestly. I think sometimes you'd rather have a hand trap than a Fenrir on your end board, especially if you're Baguskaing it up, you know, like a real gamer. But because of how reactive it is, same thing with Heart, same thing with Duel Academy, it's not really preferred. But banishing something face down as a permanent form of removal, pretty awesome. Ruins, oh boy, Rainbow Ruins. Do I love this card. It used to be the best field spell in the game in format, like when Crystal Beast first came out, up until Duelist Alliance, when field spells started to get insane. Being able to draw a card every turn, so it's like Pot of Greed. Not only are you drawing for your draw phase, but you're drawing another card for the turn for Rainbow Ruins. But as the years have gone on, even though the spell and trap negate isn't once per turn, I think it's a C tier card, just requiring too much to set up. Even with cards like Golden Rule in the mix, you really aren't trying to be out here trying to Rainbow Ruins lock people. But maybe if we get a new extra deck card that allows us to do that, or main deck card, main deck monster, that would be ideal. Hopefully this does see its time in the light. Tornado Dragon, I think, is an awesome B tier card. Very solid at being able to just destroy anything your opponent has as long as it's a spell or trap. Maybe even an A tier card, honestly. But I would put it here just because it's a little bit easier to make than Hope Harbinger. It's actually a lot easier to make than Hope Harbinger. Crystal Conclave, baby. Conclave, gotta be S tier, right? Conclave being able to give you back interruptions and like being an engine is cool too, but strictly as an interruption, it's interesting. I think because it's a spell or trap, there's a lot less stuff that deals with it. Whereas people could Dark Ruler you, there isn't really, Red Reboot isn't around anymore. It's really easy to make. Do we put it in S tier? I'm down. Conclave is an S tier Crystal Beast card. What more could you ask for? Pretty matchup dependent, you think? Okay. I'm fine with putting Conclave in the matchup dependent section. It's not quite a floodgate in matchups where you don't really want to bounce cards to your opponent's hand. It is kind of matchup dependent, but being able to bounce that sweet, sweet extra deck card to get that value against Branded when you're under Necro Valley, this card just keeps you in the game. Finally, IP Masquerena. It's got to be like a B tier card, bro. This card makes IP good, and that's the thing with IP. It's really just the other cards that make it good. Underworld Goddess, for example, is another one. I think it is better than a lot of these. I'm down to put it like in high B around here. Yeah, definitely don't want to be Conclave bouncing against Dark World. I think IP here is fine. And then Crystal Miracle is an S tier card. 100% Crystal Miracle is an S tier card. Protecting against everything. I can't say how much a Solemn card is invaluable. Cyber Dragon Infinity, I want to say, is an A tier card, right under Herald of the Arclight. Omni Negates are always nice, and it destroys. That's it. These are all of the possible crystal-based Endboard cards you can incorporate, and I think it's easy to see. The Floodgates and the cards that are easy to make are going to be S tier. And that's the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, ladies and gentlemen. Negates are only A tier. Yeah, in the past, all Crystal Beast Endboards were pretty flimsy, but thankfully Miracle solves that. And then, of course, we gotta put Shifter in S tier. Who do you think I am?